Okay, before I preface this, excuse the crappy quality. Unfortunately, I attempted to make a lovely video talking about what I'm about to be talking about, but unfortunately, for some reason, my laptop continues to corrupt it. So now, instead of a crap guide to philosophy, this is now a PowerPoint presentation to philosophy. Now, why have I segregated these philosophers? Well, I have already goofed it because a lot of the people in the Greek section are not Greek. In fact, they are Italian, with ancient Roman. But when you start with philosophy, you're told to start with the Greeks. So I've basically put anyone who has a marble statue of them in the Greek section. The French people, I'm very excited to talk about. We've got Voltaire, we've got Albert Camus, we've got the Think Therefore I Am in René Descartes. Then we've got German. The Germans are all a bit depressing, but they all have something interesting to say. Karl Marx, in fact, wrote the Communist Manifesto along with Engels. And then we've got other, which were all people that didn't have a country of significance. Like British people had like two people who did philosophy, Italian, vice versa, which we now realize Italian was not quite correct. Anyway, now I've got this. This tier list is all about how I'm going to be putting these philosophers and stacking them accordingly. So, at the top we've got extremely inspirational. I believe anyone who reads this person's work will be influenced no matter what. Can inspire certain people. If they read the book, they'll be inspired, they'll love the philosophy. Depends on the person. This is more enjoyed the book, didn't like the philosophy, liked the philosophy, didn't enjoy the book, vice versa. Kind of just mediocre. Your philosophy is kind of boring, your book's kind of boring, you didn't impact the world that much. Then we've got absolutely not, which is like just not of significance at all. So, who am I going to be talking about? I'm going to be talking about Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. A lot of people's introduction to philosophy in the form of Stoicism. Now, before we talk about the philosopher king, Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, let me figure out who was Marcus Aurelius. Well, Marcus, when he was young, he was noticed for already embracing a lot of his ideals that made him popular in his works. He was very hardworking. He was reserved by nature. He was not that he didn't have emotions, but he was great at putting them to the side and getting to the bottom of things. Therefore, due to having his father die, a man named Antoninus, I'm not sure, adopted Marcus Aurelius. Therefore, Marcus Aurelius actually worked alongside him in government and was very familiar with public relations and all those things through working with his adopted father. Now, his entry into politics. Marcus Aurelius in 140 AD became a consul, which he actually held twice in his life because he was consul for a little bit, stopped being consul, became a consul again. Meanwhile, Marcus Aurelius continued his studies into philosophy. A lot of his work he attributes to Epicurus, which in the next video you realize why Epicurus is such a beast, because he influenced so many people. They've got the philosopher king. Now, when we talk about Socrates, you understand why I keep calling him the philosopher king. I'm so annoyed. I had some funny edits when I originally filmed this with like zooming in and like having like foreshadowing, but unfortunately this is the best I've got, and if I need to bestow knowledge with PowerPoint, that's how I'm going to do it. Now, in 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius' adopted father dies, but the funny part was the emperor was the reason Marcus Aurelius got adopted. Marcus Aurelius was noticed by the emperor, so the emperor, for some reason, chose Antoninus to adopt Marcus Aurelius. The emperor made Antoninus the heir, then Antoninus died. So through stacks and stacks, Marcus Aurelius became emperor. So from a slave to adopted to son of the emperor to emperor. as long as he made his adopted brother the right-hand man, which he did. Now, he was the last 5 of the so-called only good emperors of Rome. However, he also, for almost his entire thing, was involved in war and disease. Now, not a war he started, not a war he did out of cruelty, but it was essentially people trying to take over Rome, and he had to be like, okay, I need to stop that. Now, we have Meditations. This is his so-called book, which was actually just a collection of journals. Now, over 19 years of ruling over Rome, he remained virtuous, and he wrote about this virtuous approach to life. And he didn't write it as, this is how you should live. It was as like reminders to himself. Like, hey, Marcus Aurelius, you don't need to get mad at this because it's all part of the universe and you can't control that. You can only control your reaction, which is Stoicism. Now, a lot of emperors, such as Emperor Nero, are very associated with debauchery and violence and sleeping around, drinking, but for 19 years, Marcus Aurelius didn't indulge in any of that. He denied it the entire time and didn't need to. All he wanted to do was be the best man that he could. And if you think of men in society, Marcus Aurelius is pretty up there in terms of greatness. Now with that, you'd think, oh, he's got to go on extremely inspirational, right? Well, no. I've put him in can inspire certain people. Now, why? Well, I've personally read Meditations, and it was inspiring, but not super inspiring. And unfortunately, Marcus Aurelius has been yoinked by the manosphere, and the manosphere is all about like reclaiming testosterone, reclaiming masculinity, but unfortunately, like Marcus Aurelius was not only, he was a good person and therefore a good man, where people in the manosphere think that having lots of women, making money, grinding, wearing suits, that's what being a good man is. That's not being a good man. That's toxic masculinity. And if you don't want to delve into that, it's also just not making yourself a better person. Marcus Aurelius did this because he wanted to be virtuous. He wanted to be a calm person. He wanted to be good for himself and the people around him. This being a better man is all making yourself a better product for other people. I wear suits and I make money, so women like me. I get better jobs, so women like me. I get fit, so women like me. It's all making yourself a product, which is not what you want. It's not. So, who's next on the list? Well, you'd think it'd be Epicurus because of what I'd said about him. Nailed it. It's actually Seneca. Now, Seneca, this little quote that I'm going to leave you with before I begin crafting the next one is, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Now, Seneca, unlike Marcus Aurelius, his writings actually greatly impacted Stoicism, where Marcus Aurelius kind of just acted like a role model of Stoicism. Seneca actually added to the conversation, and he added a lot to what we now know as Stoicism. A lot of his writings, and more importantly, his letters. But that is something for another video. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and this has been a crap guide to philosophy.